Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Joining from all over the world. Selar is streaming from West Africa, so it's okay to say good afternoon, but wherever you are, it's good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to the discussion of the century. Am I? You look amazing.
Thank you. You too, by the way. Both of you look. You
You
look
want to
like you're
be
not.
fresh like Tony right now? I want to be fresh like you.
Yeah. Well, good afternoon. I'm so glad to be here, and shout out
Thank
to
you for
Stella. Shout
joining
out to everyone
us.
here. Hi,
Thank you.
Laju.
P,
Hi, Emily. Hello,
good
Nancy.
afternoon.
Good
So my
afternoon.
name is
Thank you for having me.
Nancy. Let me introduce myself to Pio now. All the way from
Okay.
CCI Yaba, from the days of PT to now PT.
Oh, where's my bell? I don't know if you can hear me. I need to get like a real bell. Oh, I'm broken this
Yeah.
thing though.
So
1 minute, please. Anyway, peace
I'll
to meet you,
remind
Nancy.
thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. I'll remind Uche to get that bell. It's important.
All right, no problem. I'm gonna get it. And of course,
Okay.
peace to meet you, MI. Glad to be here.
Thank
I was thinking
you.
to myself the first time I heard MI sing. It wasn't even one of the popular songs. It was this Jehovah song by Iben. And I was like,
Ibe,
who is this person rapping? We need more of that, more of Christian content from you, please.
especially, we are CCI, our church, that's how we move. That's how we roll in our
That's
church.
how we roll.
Hey.
but
Thank you
thanks for
so much
having
for
me, and
being
of
here.
course, thanks to Stella as well.
Yeah, and it's such a privilege to be doing this and hosting both of you on this discuss today. To the rest of the world, the viewers, anywhere you're joining us from, this is the biggest, largest creator summit in the whole of the world right now. I don't know why they keep saying Africa. For me, this is the biggest thing happening on planet Earth right now. So we're going to be discussing how the internet has put the African creator economy on the map. And shout out to Seller for putting this together because it's so important that creators are coming together to learn and go global with their message, which is the theme of this year's summit. Without wasting your time, I'm just going to get into the conversation. I'm just here as a conversation driver. We are family. We're just here to talk. It's like a fireside chat. So nothing magnanimous, but of course, all the truths and all the details that you will not share on
With
social
this
media.
damn question you people said, nothing magnanimous.
No, those things you will not post on your social media. Those tweets you want to tweet it, but
It was like doing research for an academic paper.
yeah, so those are the answers we want to have here. Okay, so my very first question would go to the entertainment industry. I'm going to throw it into, I'm going to make it that blanket. It has witnessed significant global recognition in recent years. Even the Grammy right now is considering expanding its categories to African music, right? And I'm wondering, without the internet, would this have even been possible at all? So, what role do you think that platforms like TikTok have played in amplifying African creativity and connecting artists within Africa to the global audience? What's the role here? What are the fine lines we're not seeing?
Laju,
And
you want to
anybody
go?
can go first.
Okay, let
No,
me
this
go.
question is for MI because you
Ah.
mentioned Grammys, so it's music people.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Especially everyone all around the world that's paying attention to this. This is so commendable. Um, Cellar does important work. It creates an avenue for millions of young, talented people to earn and to share knowledge, which is very important. And I'm just honored to be here and to be able to speak. I'm here to learn as well. So please don't look at me as an expert. I'll give my perspective and 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 share. But the internet has been, I mean, pivotal. Even though, as I answer my questions, I'm always going to flip the coin and show us the other side, right? But in 2008, when I came out, I remember that what seemed an impossible task was made possible because of Facebook, and then because of platforms like Not Just Okay and True Spots that were expanding. And you look at what, like, you talked about CK, what TikTok did for CK and what that did for the Afrobeat industry with Love Wanting Team. You look at Black Bones, people that you've met, and how Black Bones is able to be like, as a marketing genius, creative genius, he's able to like inspire people to come online. But it's wider than that. I mean, Pastor Laju is here. Whether it's the Hallelujah Challenge
Yeah.
or I mean, we I worked with Nosa. Nosa had an amazing song, I Will Always Pray For You, that I discovered online, and that's how he ended up at Chocolate City. Um, it's played a really critical role in allowing African creators and creativity to be heard. However, the flip side of it is that African content has always been valuable to the world. Let's not forget that they are just returning some of our artifacts, right?
Now,
The problem has never been about the value of African art. And so
mm,
I think sometimes we get that missing. It's almost as if, oh, as the world is seeing us now, it's no, no, no. The world has always known. They've always wanted to be completely extractive only. So what they would do before is like, okay, if Shadia Adu can move and immigrate to Germany and figure out that her family can pay school and everything, and then she becomes successful, then we can assimilate her, or Hakim or Lajuan. And now the internet has allowed us to be able to show our talent from where we are and show the world and then transact through that. But I want to always say that whereas African talent has always been valuable, it's the distribution that has been the challenge. And even as the internet has come and has basically democratized distribution for creatives, that the thing for us to note is how much of the internet does Africa control? How much of the internet do Africans control?
mm.
Because again, they may come, look at our creativity, we're happy, we're spread, and we only get the royalty payments on the end of it. And I think that's a very important thing. It's a great moment we're in. As you said, the Grammys have just confirmed that there's going to be an African performance category, um, and it's an amazing opportunity. It's something that I never thought I would see in my lifetime, but we're witnessing it real time. Africa to the world, Nigeria to the world.
It's now in our lifetime, the order of day. That was Tiwa Bello. So it's I love the fact, when knowledge speaks and experience speaks, they are different. But when knowledge and experience are speaking at the same time, you can tell, and that's just what you did right now. So thank you so much for answering that question so profoundly. I'm going to take it a notch higher, and now I'm going to, you see how Pierre just said, it's Grammy Young, ask MI. I'm bringing Netflix. Okay, so with the rise of streaming platforms like Netflix, right, and Spotify, African content is reaching even a much wider international audience. I mean, I was in Seychelles some months ago, and just coming down from the flight, I was hearing da na 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 da na na. I'm like, what's going on? And they just, we are some artists are even bigger outside. They don't know how big they are on the international
Mm.
scale of things, right? So, how has this shift in distribution channels, like you mentioned, impacted the growth and exposure of Nigerian entertainment on a global scale? And what opportunities does it present for artists and creators in the region?
Okay, so let me go first before you accuse me of pushing it over to MI. I think in the past, for Nollywood, for example, if you wanted to be a part of Nollywood, you had to go through 61 Eweka Road on Icha or 1/3 Pram Road Aba to get your work distributed, right?
Yeah.
I think I was listening to the founder of Rock, and he was talking about how the way he started that platform was because his mom would be traveling abroad, and she would say, "Oh, I need to buy plenty CDs for my friends in America so they can watch Nollywood films
Nigerian
because there was
movie.
no way." Yeah, because there was no way to watch it. And I like the way MI started, which is something I just written in my notes, that Africans are very interesting people. Our stories have always been interesting. The way if we say the word we can say it in like 10 different ways and they mean like 10 different
So
things. So we've
different
always been
things.
interesting people. There's always been a lot of value in our art and our creativity. And I think that the missing link largely has been distribution, where if you want to make a film and you want to be successful, you have to go through Aba or Enugu, which is still beautiful because what Asaba and Enugu have done for us in the industry cannot be gainsaid, right?
Yeah.
And then you had so we had African Magic, then Rock, and then cinemas made a comeback. But there's something MI said which I want to go back to, which is the democratization of the process. In other words, not everybody who could tell stories and make films really had the opportunity to do so, or not on a successful level, right? You had to be the 1% of the 1%, because even if for some reason you're able to gather money to make a film, how are you going to sell it? And in the days of CDs, it was very, very easy to just pirate easily,
Very.
like before you even, very, very easy to pirate. So I like the fact that the internet has democratized the process, making it easy for regular people like me. For example, when I was an undergrad, my dream was to go to the US and work with Tyler Perry, but ministry called. And then my parents did well in sending me to a private school, but I knew that their finances were not enough to send me to the US. So basically, at that time, I didn't really have so many opportunities to be a filmmaker. So I started in newspapers, and then after a while, I started writing, right? So I had my blogs and then I had my books. And one thing I realized in the process was before then, my history is as an author, so I'll start from there. Before then, you had to be picked by some of the big publishing houses for you to even be a successful author. Somebody had to pick you and say, okay, we're going to publish your book. But by the time I started writing, I realized, oh, I could build my own audience and sell my books to them directly and make a lot of money and make a lot of impact, and not wait for people to tell me, oh, your book is too spiritual, or it's too this, or it's too that. I was one of
Mm.
those people that would always send, like, you send like a manuscript to a publishing house and you will hear back. You enter a competition and you will hear back. And there's a tendency for us to feel like our stories are so unique. But they aren't. Because every time I sit down and I talk about the stories that I like to tell, I have thousands of people who are saying, oh, this resonates with me, this resonates with us, right? So I like the fact that the internet has democratized the process. Of course, I was Googling it and I heard that Netflix invested about 175 million in Africa since 2016, which is a big amount, but on the global scale, may not really be a big amount compared to maybe if you look at what they are paying for Nigerian films compared to what they are paying for K drama films, Serenge.
The budget alone.
Yes, but I believe that we've always been a people who can make much out of nothing.
Yeah.
Really, we've always been a people who can make much out of nothing, and so even though we are not there yet in terms of what our counterparts around the world are being paid, and sometimes I can see the reason why, because our stories are powerful, but sometimes we're still trying to measure up in some areas, and that's okay. We're improving, we're doing better, right? But the amount of money that is coming into Nollywood at this time, I don't think we've ever really had it at this level, and then accommodating this number of people. And it's not just Netflix, it's not just Prime, even though they are spending a lot. They're some of the biggest spenders now. What about YouTube? When I started filmmaking, I didn't really know many people, and people didn't know me, but I could make stuff, put on YouTube, and build my audience to the point where by the time my film now came on a paid platform, I had an audience that could go and watch it and get us the numbers that we needed. So I think that it's just really beautiful to have a situation where everybody has a chance, and you don't always have to know someone that knows someone. I hope you guys have um some skit makers on this entire thing, because those guys, like, you might not have heard of Elayo Wasabi before, and then you just wake up and you're like, this person is so talented, and there's so many of them like that. So I think it's really beautiful that we get to build our own audiences, that we get to reach our audiences where they are. And not even, it's not always even an expense, it's not even just the audience situation. So for example, why I like Seller as a platform, sorry, I'm wrapping up now, but why I like Seller is a very flexible platform. So for example, we wanted to sell one of my films last year. We didn't like the deal that we had, and it was a non-exclusive deal. So we said, okay, before we give you guys this film, we're going to make money ourselves from this film. And so I put the film on a different platform and I sold it on Seller. And I said, this is going to be a virtual premiere. It's like a cinema. I'm not going to create an app where I'll be paying for
Cracking
space
your
in the
head.
cinema for 200 years. I said, it's a virtual cinema. If you don't watch it at this particular time during Easter, that's it. Oton is like you paid for tickets and you didn't go to the cinemas. And we're able to make the amount of money we used to make the film and some by selling directly to our audiences. Seriously, because I was like, these people that follow me on Instagram, you people are real human beings. You're not bots. If I can get some of you to buy from me directly, then I know, okay, I've made some money before taking to the platform. So I think it really gives us the opportunity to be innovative, to put ourselves out there, and to sell our stories. And if you don't understand the economics of scale, if you don't make money consistently from something that you love, you might not be able to do that thing as consistently as you would like to. So I think that's basically, those are my thoughts anyway. Thank
So
you.
thank you so much, PL. PL, you just took us from filmmaking to intellectual rights to budgeting to economics to the politics. You just took us all round. And I am privileged to be hosting this panel session, just looking at the evolution of yourself and MI being relevant in your industries for almost 2 decades and a half. We are honored to have you here. Thank you so much, Selah, for putting this together and for bringing seasoned, experienced speakers like this. I'm going to
That you
come
get
to
you
the
everywhere.
question about the evolution part, but I want to talk about the intellectual rights now. So, intellectual rights are important. This is a very important aspect of the entertainment industry. With the internet now enabling access to, not just access, very easy access to this content, the sharing of this content, how can the Nigerian entertainment industry monetize but also protect the creative works of these artists? As experienced individuals, what measures can be used to combat piracy, at the same time protect the rights of creators in the online space, whether they are skit makers, they're musicians, they're content creators, they're actors, they're whatever they are? How do we protect their rights?
Mm.
It's a great question. Because I think that it's an ecosystem question as well.
It
Um,
is.
I think the first thing that you look at is what are the policies and legislation around that? What are the
Mm.
institutions and are they functioning? From the music space, I can tell you that we've had a very interesting journey with P-Man. We've had a very interesting journey with Koson and MCS. I think it's MCSN is called. Um, and on the um, on the ringtone side, there was an interesting journey there. I don't know if you guys remember, like 10 years ago, basically 70% of the revenue from ringtones was being held by the telcos.
Telecoms.
And then the distributors were holding another like 80%. And so the actual talent was getting, it was a big thing. We protested, we went on, we shut down, we closed music for one day. And it's been a struggle. Um, I'm very, I know this has nothing to do with politics, but I'm very excited for the opportunity with a new administration to look at these things. Like if there's anything, is that we know that, okay, when an administration comes and they don't solve a problem, when a new administration comes, you're like, hopefully there'll be some people here that will be like, look, the world is going to come here and buy African intellectual property. It's already doing it. That $175 million is bought, and most of that catalog is now owned by Westerners. If we don't set the policies in place that protect our creatives, we're going to lose out at that regard. But even if you have policies in place and people can access funding to do their own projects, there's no funding. Let me talk about it like at a structural level all the way down. There's no funding. So when I was a young guy, when I wanted to make music, I was going to a church, so I could play drums and keyboards there. But if I wasn't there, where would I be able to go to get money to go to the studio? Where would I be able to figure it out? And then when I started a record label in Jos called Loopy Records, there was no funding. It meant I had to sign a deal, which eventually worked out. I signed to Chocolate City, but that could have been Warner Records or whatever, and I could have been now an American artist. And
Yeah.
I think that's the challenge. The challenge around IP rights here is that Africa needs to wake up to the fact that our resources are constantly being bought for cheap, and we're not taking any royalty off of what is going to make in the eventuality in the future. We're selling our land, we're selling our pipelines, we're selling, and here is something where we are actually more skilled. We're selling roads, we're selling, like, okay, you guys una sabi road pass us, no problem for now. Una sabi engineering pass us, no problem. But this creativity, nobody sabi and pass us. Nobody can write. We created a movie industry with nothing.
Nothing.
We created a music industry with nothing. We created a fashion industry with nothing. We created a photography industry. Like, go ask Kelechi Amadi, go ask T.Y. Bello, they created it with nothing. And that cannot continue because the size of that economy that is not funded by itself is going to be so small that one American billionaire, one French billionaire, one person can come and can move everybody in one fell swoop. And that intellectual property is transferred. So outside of the fact that at a policy level, we need help, at a structural level, we need help because it doesn't, you can set all the laws in place, but if it doesn't make sense within the ecosystem. And then there's another level. Again, I'm coming back to the coin of the internet. At a tech level, we need help because you see, when I go onto Facebook or Twitter, I'm not going to talk about our very precious seller here. I'm going to talk about other. When I go to those other platforms, and I agree to the terms and agreements, I'm agreeing to terms and agreements that are based on a certain law of a certain land. And that's where the conversation. So you think about like YouTube talking about the breakdown of streaming, or you think about like, and in Africa, we don't have to follow those laws. We don't have to follow those rules. We don't have to follow that playbook. We have a completely new infrastructure. Like, why can Seller not completely change the way education is done across the continent? Completely, like like change what they've done and do something new. And I think that that's the real massive opportunity we're missing here. Like, is there a way that the continent can treat IP more specially so that American artists, Indian artists, European artists want to sign to African labels because they know that their IP will be treated better? Is there a way we can set up our policies around management of rights across the internet? As we're even looking forward into AI and all this, can Africa take a front row seat? This is something that we know that we are more gifted. Like, look at crypto adoption, look at Web3 adoption. Africa is top of that.
So
Look at
what you're asking us to do in Africa is to do exact. We've set the standard in filmmaking, photography, creativity, everything else. So you're asking today on this call that in the same vein we set that standard with IP. If I get you correctly.
exactly. We create an enabling environment for people that create IP to be able to create IP properly without MIT. Even if you give out tech policies, it doesn't matter. Like, you need an enabling environment for people to go and create. So that needs to be funded, and there are policies around that, right? So it's not just the intellectual property right itself that's the challenge. It's like, are there policies that impact that? And then around the rights itself, it's blue ocean for us.
How do
Like,
we start this discourse on the policies? Who are making the policies now? How educated and exposed are they? How much of the understanding do they have on IP rights internationally to even think of collapsing it entirely to build something fit for the African market?
you're asking me a question that, you know, I don't know where you are. I'm in Lagos. So when you ask me a question,
That's why
who
he
are
said
they?
he's having hope for the new administration based on what they've gone through in
An
the past.
opportunity. Honestly, I've met with two governors since the election has started, since the election was confirmed. And I'm trying to meet with everybody. I want to go to my state. I want to see if I can sit with the governor there because at the end of the day, when government joins and pushes and supports, it changes everything. And these guys in the West, they built those institutions with hand in hand with government.
With the
So
government?
I'm going to try my best, but I'll tell you my confidence is really low because the truth about it is that we have an infrastructure, leadership infrastructure that doesn't reward competence; it rewards loyalty, and then you have a different type of leader that emerges. So
Thank you so much, MI. And we've seen this reward system play out in almost all sectors of the economy, even to the creative industry. We've seen that. You drew a
I think.
nexus between
Okay,
the.
sorry.
Pio, do you want to say something?
No, please carry on. I thought are we deviating from this question because I wanted to touch on it a little bit,
Oh, please touch on
but
it
I
a
don't
bit.
want to distract
Touch
you.
on it a bit. It's
I
fine.
think Emma really talked about this at the macro level, right? But I think that because this is also like a concept, it's a summit for creators, I think it's also something that we need to touch on the micro level. So while we know that it's not always very easy to enforce the laws that we do have, and we don't have all the right laws in place, I think that there are things that creators can do to some extent protect their copyrights. Like, for example, if you Google, I think my most popular book is Dating Intelligently. And if you
Yes.
Google it, what everybody's asking is Dating Intelligently free PDF. Like, that's the first thing that comes out. Are you Googling it? And you're never going to find it because it's not out there. I published that book in 2018. I'm still it's still a very profitable book for me. So I think that there are some
Okay.
filmmaker or you're an author, you will see it to download. I'm
It's
sure.
the first link is showing me is Amazon. Buy on Amazon. That's the first thing.
Buy it. So so that's the thing. And then when cause I one of the things I do is I coach writers, and some people just say, oh, my ebook. And then, how are you selling your ebook? Oh, I'm selling it on WhatsApp. People pay me. And then I'm just like, it does something to me, because I imagine them sending their ebook as a bulk SMS to the 249 people that did not pay at once. So I feel like creators also need to, you need to, no, but some people tell me, oh, just send it to me, only me. I'm like, even my family members. Do you get? So I feel like we can do things intentionally to protect ourselves, protect our copyright. For movies, I would say whatever platform you're putting it on, make sure you have your money as much as possible. Make sure you have the best deals first, because there's almost no platform that people can't pirate movies from. So if you haven't made your money back, like if you've made your money back, it will pay you, but it won't pay you as much as if you haven't made your money back and some, right? So you have to always like push out for the best deals. I feel like there's an issue with creators in that we love to create, but we are not very interested in the business side of things. So that's why I see a creator will create something, they just put it on YouTube, then they quietly run away, and then they come and check, are people watching? They are not watching. They create. So I feel like we also need to be like the CEOs of our work, such that you're not just the creator, you're not just the person who wrote or the person who produced, you're also like the person in charge of PR and publicity. You're in charge of accounting. You're talking to lawyers, because when you hear some deals that some creators sign, you're like, what were you thinking? Didn't you have a lawyer that could advise you? So I feel like we need to try as much as possible to protect ourselves at the micro level and protect our work. And then if you write something, register it with the Copyright Commission. Not all cases will go to court, but the ones that do, and the ones that will win, are eventually those who have the right kind of paperwork. So I think those things will really help. Guard your work as jealously as possible, and then go for sales, so that even if people pirate, at least you've made something off that particular product, because it is a product. That's why we're all here together. It's a product. Like, it's not, it's my idea, it's a product. And I feel like we need to see our work also as products if we are going to continue to do what we do and succeed at it. So thank you. Yeah, back to you.
Thank you, PL. You know, it's so beautiful to see that PL teaches even better than she preaches. Like,
Mm,
it's really
eh,
amazing, like how you drew this together.
So
Because
should I go
yesterday,
and pray and fast more, so I will,
PL, stop now. So yesterday on my Instagram, I was speaking about I did this ask me anything, and I had this very young girl, very talented, on TikTok, send me a DM, and she was speaking about how she and her friends have had agencies come to them and make them sign very outrageous things, put them to start advertising some products for some companies, and they get little or next to nothing. And I told them my story. The first time I made millions from the internet, from Instagram, was in 2021. And the first deal was about 3 million naira or something. And I signed that deal without involving a lawyer. It was on a random conversation with a lawyer, my lawyer at the time, because I was already big in the MC space. And he just said, did you read the terms of the agreement you signed? I was blabbing, and he cuts the call. I carried myself to his office. I'm like, sir, sorry, don't be offended. But in case, just help me and look at I was looking at the documents. I was seeing in perpetuity. In perpetuity. It was a contract for 2 months. Everywhere had perpetuity. When I browsed perpetuity, it meant forever. I'm like, what? What did I just do? So it was where I got to his office without an appointment. He's an SAN, so it takes time. But seeing me there, he knew that this one is helpless. So he explained that contract in details. By the time he was done, young people, when we have a deal that is coming, we already create problems we want to solve with the money. Ah, 500K now. This house, I want to pimp it. Okay. That my car is like, I'll move to a Venza. This Toyota is not Toyota anymore. All those problems disappeared because I now had knowledge on what I had signed. So he had to put the call across to the agency as my lawyer to tell them not to make payments, that I was not going to proceed. I think intellectually what he said was that I already had a contract that was overlapping with their own contract or something, all those law terms. Now, that was because I had a lawyer. So I'm imagining thousands of creatives, just Nigeria. Nigeria is big, only Lagos alone, what they are in, the deep shits they've gone into because of the things they signed. Now, I'm bringing this question to you, Emma, because I know you have task. How can artists protect themselves from record labels taking advantage of them? And what is tax doing about this? How can creators benefit from the work you're doing at tax?
Man, I wish I had recorded what you said, Nancy. You just gave the problem statement for task, right?
Mm.
Like, I am one of those creatives. I was born in Jos. My dad was pastor. My mom at the time was a student at Uni Jos master's program, and I really loved music. But we're just like a middle to lower income class family, um, and and I went through the journey of what it means to be a Nigerian creative.
Wow.
Born in Jos, blew up in Lagos. I've been arrested times just going to an event. I've left house at 4 a.m. to go. I've been, my younger brother has been kidnapped twice. Jesse Jaggs was kidnapped twice on this on just on our journey to make it. I've seen people traumatized. I've lived in a house with 20 people. Like, the point is that it's just too difficult as a creative.
Mm.
And then even when you make it, then now you now have to have a lawyer. You now need to be a CEO, as PL was saying. Like, you have to be able to do all these things. And I believe that for African creatives, that's going to give us a handicap that's not going to allow us go forward. So we're building a company to solve this problem. It's a platform that's going to act like a business agent for creatives, where we can handle your business and you can worry about the creativity. What that means is great admin support for creatives. Second is great deal sourcing for creatives, and third is great project management. So of course, the creative has to be the person that drives everything, but we feel like if you have access to easy legal support, easy accounting, templates that make that easier for you, if you're able to get opportunities that fit you to come to you, and then if you're able to have that organized for you in some sort of schedule or calendar, and have somebody that have a support team for that, we're going to be able to help creatives unlock massive wealth. Not just that, we're going to help creatives change Africa. One of our strong places is social impact. So what we tell creatives like myself and other people is like, look, you're going to make money, but one of the ways you can really make sustainable money is for you to be able to give back to your community. So for instance, last year we started a festival in Jos called Incredible Music Festival. We had about 5,000 people come. And why is it important? Because Jos is a place that people are running away from. But when an artist like MI says, I want to do an event in Jos, it strengthens the local economy. It gives an opportunity for people to earn. There's a woman that's selling uh, um, there's a woman that's selling food. There's a guy that's selling drinks. There's different people that are going to be able to come and make extra money. And in a place where there's no creative economy, that this suffers. So that's what task is. Thank you for asking that question so I could talk a little bit about it. We're on the journey and we're going to build an amazing company, just like Selar for African creatives. But the other question which you asked, which is really, really, really important, is how can artists protect themselves from record labels taking advantage of them? You know, the human element of this is that when somebody feels desperate, they will do things that they won't.
On a
They
normal
don't.
day.
Yeah. And so to me, that's the real thing. It's not that artists don't know that they should have a lawyer in the room. It's not that. It's like, if this is my one opportunity, you know, I've been on the streets for 2, 3 years. And I want to mention that first, because without that, you're going to continuously take advantage of young creatives. Like, this problem has been in the American industry for decades. It's been well publicized. There have been albums about it. There's been so many things. But when you still meet an 18-year-old kid that has been living hand to mouth for the last two months, and he's standing in front of an artist he respects, and the artist is like, "Hey man, if you come with me and you trust me, I will take care of you." Most creatives are not going to have this presence of self to do that, and that's something that needs to be changed. This is something that maybe we can fix at a policy level. We can put some guidelines around contracts and like servitude, and put some guidance around that. But from the creator's perspective now, which is important, I know that there are creators listening and are paying attention to it. I would say that the real challenge of a creative is you're in your head creating something that doesn't exist, but you're creating it for a world that does exist. And the thing you're creating is mostly beautiful. It's perfect, and you come to a world that's imperfect. And that, realizing that and arming yourself to deal in a world full of sharks. I'm telling you that people that I know loved me at one point became sharks to me in my career when the time was ready. And if I could go back 20 years to the start of my career, the one mistake I would make is that be, I would attempt to speak up for myself more. It's an insanely difficult thing to do, but whether it's you have a lawyer in the room or you have someone around, for most people, you need to move from the situation where you're in a powerless situation. And maybe that means find a lawyer. I find personally that a lot of lawyers don't know what they're doing when it comes to the creative economy. And so that creates a big challenge. I'm just being honest. I'm a record label boss that used to sign artists. And for most artists, I would have to find a lawyer for them. I would have to go find a lawyer. They would bring somebody that would come to my office that doesn't know anything about the sector, has never seen a record contract before, and is trying to negotiate based on that, and just worried about their own cuts in the deal.
At the end
Um,
of the day.
yeah. And then I think that this is also a massive opportunity for platforms like Seller, like to tap it back to Seller. Like, one of the things Task is trying to do is trying to get top creatives to teach and to give back knowledge, make money off of it, but to give back knowledge. Because when we start talking about contracts, like, if I were to sit down, this is something I want to do on one of my classes, sit down and go through my initial contract with Chocolate City and talk through point by point and tell you, like, hey, this is what you should be worried about. These are the things you should think about. These are what the splits are. This is what um, the master this is what a master means. This is what mechanical royalty means. This is what the publishing side means. This is what the producer side means, just on music alone. And then these are your other rights you need to collect. These are your performance royalties. This is where you should go. It's like such a crazy wide world that, until companies like Task build a new solution and create a new industry that makes more sense for creators, that I think one other way we can help is have platforms that where people can come and learn about the job they're going to get into. Because the truth about it is that creatives are especially susceptible because they're dreamers, you know.
So these platforms like Seller, where people like you can create materials like courses and digital products and put out. If I understand you correctly, you're saying that more successful creators should start creating somewhat like templates and learning materials for those
Exactly.
coming behind to understand exactly what they're going to be doing.
Exactly. Like
And
the
and when
way,
you say creative, am I just
yeah.
not to interrupt you, but when you say creative, for tasks, do you only work with musicians or
No, no, no. We work with across the creative spectrum. Comedians, actors, musicians, writers, animators. But I wanted to just say something that, like, when I go online on YouTube and I want to read a course or whatever, that person is going to tell me from their ecosystem. In America, that means that there's probably like some creative hub where I could go. I could probably go get a loan. I could go to a community college and work at their library there. So somebody's going to say, "Hey guys, you're a creator out there. What you need to do is you need to focus. You need to create a 6 month plan. You need to blah 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 blah." Right? And these Nigerian guys in in Ekiti.
Yaba. Oh,
This
oh,
is,
oh my God.
this is in Ekiti. This guy, this person, or this girl's in Ekiti, trying to be like, okay, how do I? And that is where an MI can teach. That is what an MI can teach. That somebody from the West, they can teach you about the things you know, but that's what we can teach. We can say, look, these are the kind of ecosystems you want to look for. You want to come to Lagos, you want to find somebody, this is what I did, this is the way to think about it. And I think a lot of times we don't see our experiences as valuable knowledge to be taught. But every textbook that you've ever seen in your life is somebody's experience that they're sharing with you. And I think that that's one other way that we can arm ourselves. It's not that I don't know that we need lawyers and accountants. It's not and managers and all that. Is that when I look in the actual ecosystem today, I realize that the truth is more complex than that. And I think that for us to solve the problem and help our African creators and creatives, that what we need to do is to be able to have some sort of like complex solution in itself that touches
But simplified. The delivery has to be simplified.
exactly.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so, so much.
And
Peter,
not just simplified, but homegrown, homegrown. For
what
example,
the
I remember taking
ecosystem?
a
Yes.
yes, exactly. I remember taking a class, and it was about a few years ago, and it was about how to do a low budget film. And this Hollywood producer director was talking about how she made a film with only $1 million because she couldn't
Only.
get funding. Yes,
That
so
was
that was her
only in
low
front
budget
of
film.
the a million.
Yeah, she only had she
Ah,
and I don't blame her because she's done films with hundreds and tens of millions. And so now she's teaching us, okay, this is how if you have only $1 million, this is a way to save money. I was like, oh, interesting, good for you. So yeah, I think homegrown solutions being taught definitely. Please, your question, Nancy.
And just to add, but think about all the knowledge that we have from the founders of Nollywood. Think about
Mm,
all they know. Think about all the marketplaces they know. Think about where they know how to get like equipment, where they go to get
mm,
like think about like the ways that they solve problems, the way that when they were stuck, they were like, ah, man, we need to do this. Like even in
mm,
those rudimentary things that we do, even in those solutions that we come up with, lie the
mm,
keys to unlock our economy. Because it is relevant to us. It makes sense. You can
mhm.
point out to, this thing. So just to add that, yeah.
this is profound. You see, everything both of you are saying and will still say, we cannot find it in any textbook right now. So please, when are we expecting your books on seller? You see this thing you're saying? The founders need to put it. I'm asking both of you. When are you? You are the founders we are seeing. When is your own coming?
Speak to the veteran. Me, I'm still learning work for now. So
So don't set me up here. Oh. You are acclaimed author. Acclaimed. First of all, that accolade alone gives me.
Best-selling books. It's
You know what I'm
not.
okay,
saying?
well, if it's books though, we've got I've got some courses on books. So, but the film thing is
Please come
I
and
ask
do
me
come and do
question.
a
This is
book
already
no
they
course.
meet me. Ask your question, Nancy, please.
Okay, so what advice are you going to give to artists, creatives who want to monetize their online presence effectively? Um, Mostly
Okay.
artists, but I'm going to leave it so that it encompasses what you do and what Pio does.
I like this question because I always say that number one advice I would give to any storyteller or any creative is tell stories about your story. I think
Mm,
many times we care so much about the art of it, that we don't realize that we need to sell. So if you're trying to get yourself out there online, selling cannot be the only thing you do. You can't just show up out. Like I tell my clients, I say, don't surprise people with your book. Don't wake up one day and say, I've released my book, come and buy. I feel like you need to take people through the entire process. Okay, this is what I'm writing now. For example, my new film, Down for the Rose, I've been
ah,
talking about it for a very long time. And
ah,
everybody who follows me knows about it. They don't know what it's about, but I've talked about it so much so that when I'm finding a situation where I need to sell it either by moving my audience to a platform or by selling it directly, we've already done that groundwork. And I feel like people need to understand that you need to tell stories about your story. So the stories you make, the songs you write, the movies, the books, that's one angle. When you are done, you need to put in as much energy into communicating what that story does or what that product does. as you have into writing it. If not, you're going to be sorely disappointed. I've seen people who only wrote one book, even though they had 20 in them, because when they wrote the one book, it was only they and their family members that bought it and they got discouraged. So if you are invested in telling stories about your story, you are able to keep replicating that and keep doing that thing over and over and over again. So let selling not be the only thing you do. Give us the behind the scenes. Let's know how you are creating this. Let's be a part of your creative process. Get your audience to know, like, and trust you. And that's a great way to build your audience, so that these are not just people you sell to, these are people who believe in what you're doing. But when it comes to time to sell, don't be ashamed to sell. Another thing I would say is make it easy for people to buy. So I when I first my very first book, which was the one I used to learn all my lessons in life, or most of my lessons, right? I put on a platform that was not accepting Naira. You know, there was a time, because I think because of the 419 thing, there are some platforms that didn't used to accept any Naira, any Nigerian card. You couldn't buy from Nigeria. In
Yeah,
fact,
the fraud cases in Nigeria were so frequent at the
it
time.
was a lot. So I put it on that platform. There was no seller then. And I was like, every day I'll come and peep. Nobody has bought. Nobody has bought. Nobody has bought. And I was wondering, I've shared the link. Why is nobody buying? And then I just abandoned that project. And then 2 years later, I found out that, oh, the reason why people are not buying is because they cannot buy it. I had to use my sister's address in the UK to be able to buy my own book.
It took you
So
2 years to figure
it
that
took me
out.
2 years. In fact, so I feel like we need to also make it easy for people to purchase from us. If you are selling something online, I feel like you're too old to be saying DM me for price, DM for, when there are so many platforms that have stores. Like I feel like in this day and age, you can't still be doing that. Do you understand? So make it easier for people to buy from you. And then, even though your work cannot speak for itself, I have to say that your work cannot speak for itself. You have to speak for your work. Like, don't say, "Oh, I'll just do good work," and to
Mm.
speak like your work does not have mouth. That is a very important point. But also important is the fact that you still need to do quality work every time. Like, granted, some people know how to sell, but if people buy from you today and they experience the quality of your work, are they going to come back? So you still have to do quality work every time, so that you still keep on having repeat customers, right? But learn to see yourself as a brand, package yourself as a brand, be authentic, get people to know you, get people to like you, get people to trust you, show us the behind the scenes of your creative process, let's know what your struggles are. When I made Loving Amanda, for example, it was people online that sponsored that film. Most of it, like I did, it was people. Do you understand? It was a lot of them that did. So
Because you had a
I
clear
think,
understanding.
yes, and then just they had also seen me do a lot of my YouTube stories over and over again with the little resources that I did have. Right. So get people to be part of your process and do good work. Do good work. I can't even emphasize that enough. Do good work. I think that is so important.
Yeah, on this good work that the way you see, you've shared timeless nuggets here. You shared deep things, and you just say them. Of course, PL is the queen of shattering tables. She will shatter it and move on, as she did not say anything. She just did it
What
here, right?
is your question? No.
So, I'm trying to phrase this question so we can wrap up. But you've
Okay.
spoken about writing, right? What opportunities and challenges presently exist in the publishing and writing industry in Africa, and how can these be leveraged for international recognition? That is in terms of
I
writing.
think I think that we need to look beyond even Africa. I was very shocked when I saw the amount of books I had sold just this year alone on Amazon. Like, I was like, oh, when the person told me, I said, is that this year or that's like lifetime? Do you get? So the truth is that the world, and at risk of sounding like a broken record, the world really is now a global village, right? You have people who are buying products from different parts of the world. So I think we need to look beyond, oh, there's this, because so like we have not really been very lucky with grants, maybe because of the kind of stories I write, grants for African stories. There are some particular kinds of stories that will get you grants
Of course, we
that
know.
I may not be comfortable writing personally. Like, I know those stories, they cover some issues that I may not really want to
Go into those
support.
issues. But
Do you understand? As a believer. So yeah, but I feel like you need to look beyond seeing it as an industry, because then it makes it seem so serious, like, oh, the African publishing industry. I feel like you also need to understand that people read. People all over the world read. And if you think people don't read, go to the comment section of any book. I spend an unhealthy amount of time understanding the way people think by doing my research with the comment section of different Instagram pages, because people actually read. So understand that Africans read, individuals read, and your stories are worth telling. So if you find yourself in a room and you and three other people are talking about something and all of you have an interest in that thing, there is a likelihood that there are millions of people who also have an interest in that. And I feel like you shouldn't be ashamed to, first of all, tell the kind of stories you want to tell. Because there was a time when the African stories I used to win the awards were stories of African suffering and pain. And even now, there are some, if you want to read African literature in its most basic form, it's really about how we were suffering, or the colonial masters, or it's not always very easy to find African stories that are tagged that way that you just enjoy for fun. Do you understand, when it comes to
Okay,
books?
Pio, let me
But
let
there
me
are
come in
not,
here. Let me chip this
yes.
in here, like right now.
Mm.
Talking about our music and our films, how can we contribute to a more diverse and inclusive portrayal of African stories? And what impact can this have on challenging stereotypes and promoting cultural understanding?
I
How
think
do we do
I
this?
think that everybody who wants to answer this question should definitely watch Chimamada's Danger of a Single Story,
A single
the
story.
talk she did a while back. I think that that really helps. And when I apply that, I don't just apply that as an African. I apply that as a Christian, as a believer, because I also really get tired of the way. And this is not the question you asked me, but it's something that's important to me, of the way the church is represented in the media today. Like, why are all the pastors fake? Why why are all the Christians pretending? Like, we know people who behave well, we know people who the church has literally changed their lives. Why aren't we telling stories like that? So I just feel like people should care more about the kind of stories they want to tell, and not feel like, oh, these are the kind of stories that sell. I've known
That's
romantic stories that did really well and nobody was having sex, nobody was naked. So I feel like we need to be authentic with ourselves and then go for quality, because it's not just always a decent story or it tells the African story. It has to be interesting. You have to have good acting, you have to have good production. I think we have like a few seconds left, so I will leave the remaining time for MI to conclude. Take a chance
How
on
do
yourself,
you
tell your story, and tell stories about your story.
Thank you, Pio. Emma, how do you envision the future of the Nigerian entertainment industry in terms of potential? What do you see for further growth, innovation, international collaboration, and what steps can be taken to ensure that we have a sustainable and thriving African creator economy? That is
Research
the last
paper.
question I have.
Yeah, I think I all my questions today I was answering big picture. So today for this one I'm going to narrow down to
Yes.
the so impressive Pastor Laju that we just listened to. Like as she was talking, I went and looked at her books, I looked at her site. I think that she's the answer to the question, and everybody should just go check her website, check her out, and look at her.
Oh,
That's
Jesus, Jesus.
that, but
Tears.
that's the future. It's like the sense of I understand my business, I understand the model. I don't see myself as I don't see myself as inferior when I'm writing my story. I write from my perspective and I give it all the credence. But then I also don't see myself as inferior when I look at the market. I look at the global market and I position myself to be seen globally. The world is open for Africa. And I'll be honest with you guys, I travel around the world quite frequently. Nobody's as interesting as Nigerians. Do you know what I mean? It's our time. It's our time. But we may sleep on the bicycle and not pay attention. And I think that
And
in
lose
that
it.
way, it's like looking at models of people who are in charge of their business, are able to earn in multiple verticals, are able to live, a life. And I think PL is a great example of that. So that's my answer. I point to her.
Hey, JC. I will not sleep this night.
Pia, please take your flowers. Please take it now.
Honestly,
Hey,
Take it.
I
Okay,
do
honestly,
not
yeah.
know what to begin, but
it,
thank you,
it,
MI.
thank you so much, Pio, for being here. Thank you, Emma, for being here. Before both of you leave, I like to do this because I've anchored enough panel sessions, virtually, physically, enough conferences to see this not be done all the time. How can the audience you're looking for reach you? how do they find you? How do they gain access to task for MI? How do we find you, PL? How can this, everyone watching from all over the world right now, thanks to Selar for such an amazing platform and for a great summit, very insightful. How can they find you?
If you
For
don't know how
me,
to find MI,
just look for me on social media. Task is task TASCK. So it's like the word task with a C before the K. Check us out. Our site, I think our site, we're changing our site, so it may be up right now, but check us out our site. And if you're a creative out there, um, and you've struggled with finding opportunities, just follow us on social media and stay in touch. We're building something quite interesting.
Thank you. So it is TASC and then K. You know CK the musician, yes, just add his name in between TAS. And then you have that. All right. So I believe they're going to be making a post, to let everybody know that this is the right platform if you're coming from Seller Summit, so that everybody following will know the right page to follow. PL, from
yeah, you
right
can find me
to the
at Laju
movies.
Iren. You
Uh-uh.
can find me at Laju Iren, my film page at Laju Iren Films, and you can also follow me on Threads. I
Woman
really
of
wanted to
God,
say that.
shaking things up.
This is my first time of saying it. I
I'm
just
coming to
joined
follow your
Threads today,
threads.
so this is my first time of saying it. So ding ding ding.
Am
So
I
Me
follow me
too.
on Threads.
Oh,
I'll
follow me
follow
on
you.
threads. I just joined now too as well.
In fact, I will follow you, but I'm more
Follow
active
you
on
too.
Instagram, and then I talk about the work that I do there. But if you're creative, please don't be afraid to start with what you have and put yourself out there and seek to be better. I think that there's room at the top for each and every one of us. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for your time. It's been an honor hosting you on this panel session. Once again, thank you for coming. So, on behalf of Seller, the organizing team, and every single sponsor of the program, I want to say big thank you. Thank you so much. God bless you. MI, keep doing the work you're doing. PL, more grace. See you in service on
And see you,
Sunday.
see you, Nancy. I'm hoping to meet you in person very soon, MI. Thank you
Me
so much. It's
Yeah,
been
too.
an
same, same,
impactful
same.
time. I've learned a lot.
And shout
I'm
out to
coming to your
everybody in the
DMs, by
comments.
the way. I'm coming to Instagram to your
Yeah,
DMs.
how do you see the comments? I'm not too
Yeah,
used to.
comments were
Where are
amazing.
they?
Like we're following the conversation. You guys, I think where you
Oh, hi! I've been seeing private chats since. Oh my God!
yeah,
Shout
Oh,
out
me
to
too.
everybody. Oh no!
Abigail Kazim,
Oh,
Halima Alimi,
oh
yeah,
Olanade
my!
Precious, Yiki
Yo
Okumo,
yo yo!
Patrick Ndobisi.
yes.
Oh, it's been
It,
I would have
buzzing.
rapped your
it was
names,
Everybody,
nice.
thank
but
you. Thank you so
thank you
much.
all
All right,
so
I'm going
much.
to let
Oh
you
my
guys
goodness,
go
I
now.
missed this. Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye.